Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's got Star Trek. Episode 92. Lower Decks, Season 2, Episode 3. We'll always have Tom Paris.
Thanks for saving my ass back there.
You've saved mine plenty of times.
I'm sorry you brought me instead of Rutherford, but, don't feel bad that you don't know much about my life. I keep it vague on purpose.
Why?
Every time I open up, people get promoted and take off. It's better to just keep it surface level and never have friends instead of always losing them.
Well, don't apologize. I was hoping this trip would be a way for us to bond, but it's just been a big mess. And the reason you don't know much about me, well, that's my fault. I'm always so busy making everyone else happy that I never open up. Now you know more about me than Rutherford does.
And I'm glad I do.
Me too.
What are you gonna tell the doc?
That I was curious and accidentally broke her post. It'll be interesting getting in trouble. I've never done that before.
And I can say 2 things. You're a really good person.
Aw, thanks. What's the other thing?
Your plan sucks. New plan.
I'm not drinking Samurai Cola, Rockstar Samurai Cola tonight. I'm backing off. I just have Monster Ultra Rosa.
I'm drinking Starbucks cold brew, so I might get a little punchy. So
yeah, last week
try to watch it.
Dan was drinking some limited edition concentrated business, and
Just an energy drink I found in 7-Eleven.
it was effective. If you're looking for an energy drink, go for that Samurai juice box. What's it called?
Samurai Cola.
Samurai Cola limited edition. Is it Monster?
No, that's Rockstar.
Rockstar.
I have Monster Ultra Rosa right now.
That's tonight, and that's something. That's a step back.
Was it Rockstar Samurai Cola?
Yeah,
Rockstar.
Rockstar brand in the limited edition Samurai Cola. Yeah, and
that won't be an issue this week.
apparently
we
not. We believe it might not be.
So Tom Paris, the main special guest this week, of course, is Robert Duncan McNeil, reprising his role as Lieutenant Tom. I forget his middle name. Paris.
He's got a lot of names.
There was just an A and B plot in this one. No C plot.
It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, all the Shaq stuff was pretty funny. All that stuff.
Comedy is very successful when they're able to pull off that thing where, in retrospect, the joke seems so totally obvious, but they manage to pull the wool over your eyes, or at least most of our eyes, long enough that when the punchline hits, it's pretty good. And this episode has 2 of those types of jokes. And so the first one being Shaq's just reappearing. And we talked about that last week, that we thought he might be coming back because we saw the actor's name in the credits. And so right now he came right back. And obviously the joke is, well, we're seeing things from the lower decks perspective, so they just completely don't get an explanation of what's going on. And that part of the joke was pretty solid.
Yeah, and Mariner's totally cool with it. She doesn't give a shit.
Mariner and Boimler too. Boimler's just like, oh yeah, whatever, and they list off their number of things. The list was pretty good. They mentioned,
there's a bunch of stuff.
like one of them was the future son from an alternate timeline, which I presume was like Jake Sisko in The Visitor.
Right.
Transporter pattern buffer thing.
Which is like Scotty in Relics, in TNG's Relics.
Genesis device.
Yeah, they had 2 Star Trek 3 references because there was also the restored Katra.
Then there were just the sort of the standard mirror universe switcheroo they mentioned,
which I guess is mainly Captain Giorgio replaced with Emperor Giorgio, right?
Right.
I'm sure there are a couple other examples, maybe from Deep Space Nine, but that's the sort of permanent one.
Yeah.
Rebuilt by the Borg was another one.
Yeah, and that's there's a Voyager episode I think called Mortal Coil, where, if I recall correctly, 7 of 9 uses Borg technology to, I think, resurrect Neelix.
Why would they save Neelix?
I know, right? It makes sense in the context of the episode, but it's been a long time since I've seen that particular episode.
I like how they sort of combined. They conflated time ribbons with the Nexus.
Yeah,
saying
same thing.
He was either time ribboned or trapped in the Nexus. Yeah, so that's a good point. When was the Nexus? Of course, was Star Trek Generations. Mm-hmm. What was the time ribbon, or was that actually literally the same thing? It was just like the same thing. Yeah, because that's what was going through. I remember them talking about a ribbon.
A ribbon through space.
A gibbon with a ribbon.
I remember. Well, wasn't that some sort of a flash animation business?
Yeah, Splode, food and Splode or something.
Way long.
Blode?
Ago. Was it Blode?
It was like, hello food, hello Blode.
Yeah, well, look it up on the internet.
What the hell are you talking about?
It's an old ancient internet thing.
From like 2005.
Blode and Blode.
Maybe even before that.
Yeah.
Ancient internet.
I mean, what else is? There's so many things that can happen to somebody when they die. What happened in? I guess that would be a spoiler of Discovery. Someone exploded or something at the end of Discovery, but I guess they were gone for good. They didn't. That was a secret. They didn't, I missed the whole point there. They didn't come back.
So after they named all those possibilities, then like Rutherford's on his own and he starts seeing all those different shacks, and there's like the Borg shacks and like the Dyson Sphere shacks and the shacks is Lincoln.
And one of the shacks was mumbling something about, I was like, what was up with T'Pol's hair? T'Pol's hair that one year.
Right, and I looked that up and I couldn't immediately, I didn't look for that long, but I couldn't immediately see anything like about what.
I recall T'Pol's hairstyle did change, but I'm not recalling when. If it
Here
was
and
like a
there.
season 3 deal or.
It looks like it
what.
got more like bowlish on top, like high, the bowl.
Bowlish on top.
The rim of the bowl.
Good evening, nice to meet you. My name is Bowlish on top.
The rim of
At your service.
the rim of her bowl was pulled up, I think, is what it looks like. So it's more.
Wait, do you
defined
mean the rim
higher
of her
up.
bowl during the process of haircutting?
Yeah, that bowl, the one that covers her head while she cuts her hair.
I thought you meant her like metaphysical bowl cut was like raised somehow.
Oh no, but it was well, it was raised through the usage of a tool, but not through through metaphysics.
A raising tool.
A raising
The
tool.
usage of a tool.
So yeah, there was that whole joke, and then what was it at the end? He started going on about like what the he's talking about the Black Mountain.
Oh yeah.
Which, by the way, Morty in Rick and Morty, there's an episode where Morty comes close to death or dies briefly or something. He's talking about something about seeing some Black Mountain.
3 faceless apparitions of your father. You have to fight 3 faceless.
Yeah.
Is the Black Mountain Lovecraft thing? I'm trying to remember.
think so.
It seems
Seems like it's something that's been. You're saying it's been referenced before.
it was referenced once in Rick and Morty, as I recall, and as the internet indicates. But I can't. I want to connect it to something,
It seems like it would be
preceding
something
that.
like that.
It seems Lovecrafty or some sort of weird.
I don't. Yeah, like it might be. I don't
Esoteric
believe
knowledge.
so. It could be somebody else's weirdness.
So what he was saying, he goes, death is the first thing that happens,
Yeah.
which is like, oh no. Then he says, then the Black Mountain is a spiritual battleground your soul goes, where you have to fight 3 faceless apparitions of your father. This next part doesn't make sense. He goes, the surviving father makes you eat your heart. Which one is supposed to be the surviving father? I thought, I don't understand how that is. Are you only able to kill 2 of them? Or
Maybe when you kill 2 of them, it activates the third.
it activates the third, the surviving father. Yeah, that probably makes the most sense.
I just to finish my thought drop from earlier. The Shax joke is the one joke that's super like obvious in retrospect, but it was like cool how it like they just immediately get to it right there, right away. And the other one was Dr. Ta'ana only wanting the box.
Yes, yes.
Because she's a
Yes.
cat. She's a cat in a coat.
Yeah, and the crew. There's like 2 crew members out there all looking around, all weirded out. Yeah, and I liked how they sort of portrayed a cat. She's all like snuggly and jumpy at first, and then she comes out and her eyes are all
Yeah, she's got
dilated.
the weird
And then
eyes.
she goes, it's like
And the thing is, the rules of sitcom comedy require that in the structure of this story that the punchline would be that their worry over the sex statue, the cat sex statue.
You mean the family sex statue that they
scratching-
passed?
vacation
Scratching
sex
pad.
That you
sex
pass down
statue.
to your children.
Scratching posts.
You have a sex
Which,
statue.
by the way, had a kissy face. Did you notice the statue had like a cat making like a kissy face?
So, I mean, are we to assume her ancestors cared to have sex with the statue? Because there were scratches on it.
Oh yeah.
So they didn't care about the box so much, but
They might have cared about the box equally as much. Maybe all the claw marks were just from their efforts to remove the statue from the box.
Or there
in
was
order
just
to play in it.
there was just so many of them too. It could have been like overrun with them, but then
But that's just it's a funny joke and it's very well done. And there's going to be a joke along those lines because if you are familiar with the language of sitcom reality, which we all are, you had to have something there that made the whole mission pointless. In other words, the whole protecting the idol or the statue. Yeah, it's like Indiana Jones. Protecting the statue and trying to get it fixed and going through all these dangers and all these other things in order to help it out. Obviously, the statue had to be meaningless in the end. But they still caught me off guard, and I was like, "What is it? What's the joke gonna be?"
It really got smashed up. And every time it got more smashed up, like Tendi would be like, "No."
Yeah, like some of the things I laughed out. I LOL'd at. I LOL'd.
LOL.
OMG.
When Freeman goes damage report and the guy's like none. That's weird. That one I was just watching it alone and I just bust out laughing.
They put their shields up.
And then when Mariner said she wasn't into being killed by a bunch of Orions, Tendi was like, they'd kill you on the spot just for being human, and she's like, well, I'm not into that. That was funny. But then and I was like, wow, those were some funny parts. But then when that box thing happened, I lost it again because in retrospect, it seems like an obvious joke, like you said, but it still caught me off guard.
It's the obvious, easy joke, and
it's so funny.
It was also greatly aided by how well it was presented and performed too. Just the animation of her, the delight she had at seeing the box and getting in and crouching down and doing that cat, weird little chittering sounds they make when they're all happy.
She should have planned ahead better. She knew her heat was coming. She should have sent him out earlier.
Well, as we've discussed, she's a competent doctor, but she's not the elite.
No, she's not. And another one thing that proves that is so she got Tendi because she wanted to keep it discreet. She's like, keep this discreet. I want you to know about it. She's like, oh, by the way, though, you can invite whoever you want along. You'd think she would try to have that under control. So, yeah. And then Mariner gets involved, and she should have just left it to Tendi or picked her second person for her. I don't know. But that was a sort of like a funny direction that the joke went in for, because it ended up happy and good. There was another part with that whole plate, the deal with the plate.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, right.
The whole episode has the audience nervous about that plate.
He's got a bunch of Voyager plates.
He got a bunch of...
You're right. It's like there's some diehard-ish type elements, but along with the don't damage the relic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I like that he went through the whole episode and he still got to keep it at the end. Because if this was like Married with Children or something, the plate would have broken at the very end on something stupid. And that's funny for but it's also, it always made me a little sad. Yes. And I was always a little bummed out. Right. So I like when they don't just throw some badness at you for no reason. I guess Married with Children was different.
It's a different kind of that's the message of the show.
Bob's Burgers does that a little bit too. Not as aggressively, as cruelly as Married with Children.
That's the show's about how the world's always pooping on Al. But that's not, Lower Decks is Boimler. It works out for Boimler.
Boimler's just pooping on himself. Yeah. Boimler's mostly pooping on himself.
Some shit happens to him and he's okay afterwards.
I think Bob's Burgers, they have such a sort of this strong sense of family by the end of it. That
they're happier. The point of the Bob's Burgers episodes and the Bundys, is even with the challenges, they're still happy.
Yeah, and the Bundys every once in a while will express their happiness at being a family, but not that often. So, the Bundys from Married with Children. Boy,
which was a television program from the 1980s.
Yeah,
into the 90s.
But that was a durable plate.
Durable.
That was a durable plate.
He smashed it into the thing.
Until you just mentioned it.
It's made out of space metal. Man.
Until you just mentioned it, I did not make the connection between the fact that both the A and B story were about protecting something to one degree or another. Because Boimler's his goal and his task is different. He wants to get the plate signed, but part and parcel of getting the plate signed is that the plate has to make it to Tom Paris safely.
And so, and that's kind
of just like this sex scratching post.
And that's kind of what I was stumbling through before, trying to say how, because I didn't put that together explicitly about how it's protecting something.
Keishan, his eyes open.
But in one instance, the thing breaks and it's good. The other thing, the thing doesn't break and it's good. So it's like things break and unbreak in a very good way.
All right, now apply that to something personal that happened in your life. Where apply that lesson.
Well, I broke my finger and it hurt, and that was bad. And then
you didn't break the other fingers.
I didn't break the other finger.
So that was good.
In fact, I crushed a can and saved space on recycling, so that's good.
I heard you're not supposed to do that. I heard it aggravates the machines or something.
Oh, the crushing of the cans?
I could be wrong about that, but I heard that.
Yeah, it's like recycling. You have to do it just so.
Yeah, you can't put pizza boxes in there.
You got to throw it all out.
You're not supposed to put in the grocery plastic grocery bags. You're not supposed to recycle those.
You're not supposed to put just like regular garbage in there. It's like they get really upset when you just toss a whole rotting chicken in there.
Why are we talking about recycle? Oh yeah, because you were asking about something broke and it was good, and something didn't break and it was good.
That's what you were talking about.
That's what I was
You were
talking about.
actually the one talking about.
Yeah, but it was to your point of what I was trying to say about how this episode is about protecting something, and I'd never put that together.
And on the Mariner and Tendi side, it's about not breaking their relationship. I said it in a cheesy voice, but it's a sincere tale. It's a fairly standard, let's pair up two people and challenge their relationship by close proximity deal.
Because they don't usually pair up. It's usually
Precisely.
the other two.
And they even make that overt joke in this episode. It's like,
right.
we've
Well,
never hung out together.
Usually with Boimler.
last week we were also talking about that I brought up the subject of
That was episode 91 of the podcast.
Yes, indeed. We're talking about will they, won't they? And we were comparing
Will they or won't they?
Rutherford and Tendi with Mariner and Boimler, and they directly referenced this actually. And
Mike McMahon is
they heard you
eavesdropping
talking.
on the podcast.
So
Mike McMahon.
oh yeah,
and he's
that's what and they came up with that
quickly
last minute.
rewriting the show.
He rewrote that scene. It was hard because
Absolutely.
he had to make it work with what they were doing before, But yeah. So Mariner was like was grossed out by the idea of dating Boimler, but then when Mariner goes, "Are you and Rutherford dating?" She goes, "Not really."
Yeah.
So
It's moving along.
moving along
home. That particular relationship will be moving right along home.
well-
Third shap, which
What?
I think is similar to third base.
That's a pretty big ship.
Were there 4
yeah.
shaps? I thought there was like 8 shaps or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
well,
I just made that
There's a lot of bases, too,
8
man.
shaps.
Why did Mariner's green wear off? Was it because she got nervous or
It
something?
was false green.
It was false green. False green.
When Tendi injects her, she states outright. She said, "This will wear off."
Yeah, but they should have, once again, just how Dr. Cute Kitty Cat, should have planned her heat better. They should have got in and out more quickly,
Tendi didn't probably know. Maybe it's
No.
variable. The old school Star Trek thing would have been to say, "This will last precisely 36 minutes."
Yeah.
But the new school way is to leave it open, and that provides more freedom for tension and drama.
I liked how that one guy was sawing at the elevator cables with an axe.
Yeah.
There was one guy who was chopping at it, and the other guy was sawing at it. If you notice, the blade for the one who was sawing was actually like saw blades on it, whereas the other one was a choppy one. So he had a saw axe. Have you ever heard of such a thing? An axe with serrated edges.
Only in my wildest dreams.
Yeah, exactly. You said it, brother.
So the actual plot of the Tendi Mariner friendship testing situation is straightforward, but it is again presented well. It is acted well. The design elements that they use. I love that they get to go to all these different places.
Make slushies out of everything.
Oh, yeah,
Quaylar
that was tight.
Quaylar 2 had a Quarks
They had
as
a
well.
Quarks,
They had a
yeah.
Quarks
Quarks.
franchise. Do you know what else it had? It had a Vic Fontaine's. It had
Vic Fontaine's, I didn't notice that.
Okay, so Quaylar 2, first of all, that planet, we
Wait,
were last
wasn't-
there in Unification 2, the second episode of the Unification
Right.
trilogy now.
Right.
Wait, what now?
Wait,
now you just listen here.
Now you
sound like Ross
Now you
Perot.
just
You
listen,
just listen here.
You just listen right here.
I'm
okay?
all ears.
I'm gonna go down to engineering if you're not careful.
Oh shit, he's pulling out the Trip Tucker. That means he's serious, folks.
What were we talking about?
Listen up.
You were talking about something. You kept pointing at me. You were pointing method.
Yeah,
you were
and-
threateningly pointing at me.
Oh, we're talking about the planets, right?
yeah,
So,
Quaylar 2.
Unification.
Quaylar- So
Unification.
what was the planet that Quarks was on in Picard?
The one with like Stardust
like free-
City
yeah,
or
Stardust- something?
Freeville or something. Free soccer.
Stardust City Rag.
Stardust
the
City
episode.
Rag was the fifth episode of Picard's first season. I can't remember
It's a
what it
wild
was.
episode.
But yeah, so Quarks, we know at least 2 franchises. I expect we're going to see
Freecloud.
Freecloud, that's right.
Yeah.
We'll see Quarks franchises, I expect, repeatedly. But there was also Vic Fontaine's. There was the sign for the Zebulon sisters,
Yeah, right.
which was from, I forget, what was that, Veritas or something? One of those Lower Decks episodes.
Zebulon isn't
It's
that?
the one with Fletcher
Oh yeah, the one where he gets
Isn't
and the Choo Choo Dance.
Isn't Zebulon one of like the 12 brothers of Joseph with the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat?
Probably. It's
Zebulon?
It's one of them
It's like
Old Testament names,
Asher and Dan
sure.
and
Terminal
Zebulon.
Provocations. It's Terminal Provocations is the episode that the Zebulon sisters are mentioned. Qualar 2. Just to start up. Qualar 2.
Qualar 2.
In
Qualar
unification.
2. We are going to have fun on you.
All right.
Wow.
Sorry.
Are you through?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry.
Qualar 2.
He wants to make it into a musical.
Qualar 2. I mean, I'm down for that. But another time. Qualar 2. In Unification 2, that's where Riker and Worf go down. They're doing some investigating. And they meet, I think her name is Amari, the four-armed piano player who plays the Klingon opera and sings the Klingon opera for Worf. And you can see, there's a sign that has you just see four arms playing piano going into that Qualar 2 city. I also liked when they were coming down in the shuttle. The city looked really cool. It looked a lot cooler than usual Star Trek cities because normally you just see the planet, and maybe in some of the newer ones, maybe you'll see some lights, but we haven't had a lot of experience with this. But you see this beautiful coastal city on not quite a peninsula, but like a little outcropping into the ocean. It's all like concentrated light, and it looks like a super fun place to go hang out.
Yeah, they were talking about how they make slushies. Make a lot of slushies.
Everything you can.
It's
make
like Key West.
Yeah, it's basically like Key West.
Yeah.
Key West, Florida.
And that's where she found out about, she saw was that band Giktal, and we find out she's into Klingon acid punk.
Isn't Giktal the name of, is that the name of the song or the band? I thought it was the song.
I think the song is called Greythor Paradise. It sounded like they said Graithcore, but I think it's Greythor Paradise.
Okay, no, you're probably right.
The chorus of disgraced Klingons.
Yeah, even Klingon art's brutal, man. Like real life brutal. You know,
The music sounded pretty rad.
Yeah, it sounded like
cool, yeah.
It sounded like Death Clock, which was the band in Metalocalypse,
Right?
And that's death metal.
Right.
So especially the last song about the Klingon eating his own hand that they left the episode with. That was
that was basically just death metal.
That was just death metal and
punk or
right and
whatever acid punk. Is.
Acid rock is, and the definition on Google says a type of rock music mainly of the late 1960s.
Yeah, it's like
associated
psychedelic rock.
with or inspired by the use of hallucinogenic drugs. So, I mean, acid sounds brutal, but it's really just referring to LSD. So, I don't think they meant Klingon LSD inspired punk. I would think the LSD lifestyle, that would be a little too hip for Klingons, I think. You know, that kind of...
Yeah, I'm saying Klingon LSD might be a different animal.
Oh,
I think they're
Klingon
doing-
LSD.
Literally, you might have to squeeze it out of
so
an
maybe
animal.
Klingon acid punk is some of their
They're doing
version
some kind of
LSD.
shrooms and having some kind of mystical journey, though. Those
Yeah.
Klingons can do that, though.
Okay. Yeah, I bet they're... Yeah,
They would do that.
They dig on...
They might start stabbing each other.
They're like
or something.
Vulcans. They want to wander around in the wilderness and fast and get all
Furious.
strong and have visions.
Visions of
Yeah, they
of
dig
Klingons,
that. They got them time
Kalish.
crystals.
Yeah, go find that temple and get some time crystals.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
You can fuck everybody's shit up with those time crystals.
So the Cation libido post. Like I know I already said this, but it's weird that it was sex toys passed down through generations.
Is it any weirder than a candle that your grandmother had sex with that you then have sex with? A la Dr. Crusher in Sub Rosa? You know, the candle that you light the candle and a Scottish guy comes out and you have sex with the Scottish guy?
I mean, that is pretty
I
weird.
think he was Scottish. I could
But
be
that seemed-
maybe I'm just kind of projecting my own candle fantasies
wish he
onto
was
that.
Scottish.
That seemed more incidental, though. Like, it wasn't premeditated, you know? It just kind of happened.
Well, I think the ghost was
Like,
manipulating some
you
of
had
it.
some sex and you're ashamed of it or whatever, you know, because it was just at the moment.
A sex camp, but you shouldn't be. Beverly Crusher's not going to be sex shamed. I don't think. in
Well,
the
I mean, I'm not
24th
saying,
century.
no, I'm not saying you should be shamed for having sex. I'm saying sometimes a person might feel shame in themselves if they did something with somebody that they never intended to do, and in a moment of
You mean have sex
passion-
with your grandmother's sex candle?
Yeah, but I'm just saying that if that was yeah, exactly. No, yeah, exactly
Yeah.
what you're saying.
But in this case, the implication is that there's no subterfuge or comical French farce style confusion, no Midsummer Night's Dream style disguises and whatnot, tricking people. It is just, that's the post that we rub ourselves on when we get horny.
And scratch them.
So that is materially different. I will grant you that.
Well, it's materially different, but it's also more premeditated because they have
Because they know.
because they have a tradition that they do,
Yes.
they do this.
They make a
year
big
after year.
deal about it.
I mean, you can call me crazy if you want to. I won't get mad or nothing.
I wouldn't. I opt not to.
I opt not
I
to.
opt not to.
Yeah, Jeremy the Cation libido post.
Jeremy, it made me think of Jeremy Lucas, Dr. Flox's friend from Dear Doctor, because we had that conversation
Jeremy
about
Lucas,
like
right.
Jeremy Lucas is like the most banal human name ever, and now it's coming up again. Jeremy.
Yeah, Mariner, I didn't know. You found out a little bit about her, right? I didn't know did they mention all this stuff that she was on DS9, then Keto, and then Cerritos was the fifth ship, so there was two somethings in between.
We knew about the Keto. We'd seen her on Deep Space Nine before, but this is
we knew about the Keto, right?
This is a firmer confirmation that she was in fact posted to Deep Space Nine, and that the prior flashback memory we saw in season 1 was not her visiting Deep Space Nine or what. She was posted there, and specifically she was posted there during the time that Worf was there. So towards the end of the Dominion War, and I think the Dominion War ended around, was it 33? Was it 23? Why was it 33? Discovery's getting me. That's why I was.
Yeah, you almost fooled me too.
But so 2375 was when the Dominion War ended.
It's either 80 or 81. I'm not sure.
Right now it's 81, I think, is the general consensus.
Okay.
Because it started in 2380. But we do get clues. We do get clues and some more confirmation about the Deep Space Nine stuff. And it opens up the possibility to see Garrick and some of the other crazy, wacky characters from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, because Tom Paris, they already got him. They got Riker.
I want to see Garrick, so I hope they have it in play. If they don't already have it planned, I hope they're working towards that.
That'd be
Because
awesome.
Andrew Robinson being on this show would be great. You could pair Garrick with all of these characters and have some sort of hilarious outcome as a result of it, particularly Mariner.
So, I don't remember us hearing Boimler's name. I heard when he said Bradward, I was like, Bradward?
Yes.
I don't remember them saying
Bradward.
Bradward before. They've said that.
I think even in the first
When
I think my memory is
Bradward Boiler.
when he has the girlfriend says
Bradward.
I think she's the first one to say the name.
There might be. We knew he was Brad Boimler, but maybe
I knew he was Brad
maybe the
Boimler. I just didn't
Bradward.
remember when the Bradward. My memory is terrible though.
Bradward's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it is. Devana, we knew that. Beckett, we knew that.
Devana Tendi. There is a slight canonical disruption, which is great.
I hate those.
It just means that Lower Decks is real, proper Star Trek.
Cannon Nickel.
And this is a debatable one too. But in the first season episode where Mariner makes the movie version, right? You know, she makes the movie version of the show basically, where they're playing around in there.
Oh right, yeah.
She has credits,
Right,
and in the
the
credits it says Devana Tendi as such and such.
Right, yeah.
So one presumes she knew that was her name. Now, one could also argue that she simply used tag fields, like if you're doing like a mail merge or something.
Yeah.
She just sort of put those things and had the computer fill in the names.
And then she didn't pay attention to it.
So that can be your headcanon if you want to understand why Mariner did not know Tendi's first name in this episode, but did know it, or appeared to know it in that previous episode.
That is an inconsistency.
She could just be really forgetful because she's always doing stuff up to no good.
Because they were earning latinum, and they needed 50 strips of latinum, and because they were in Bonestel.
Yes, they flew from Quailor 2.
Yeah, to Bonestel.
Well, at Quailor 2, I did want to mention that cool cat guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
He was just sort of like this jive cat guy.
Yeah.
He got all cool when she was into the Klingon music. But what I noticed on like my second or third watch was as Tendi and Mariner are talking, and at this stage they're starting to sort of argue with each other a little. They're getting a little bit just the beginnings of like, it was weird that you didn't know that about me thing. You see the guy go in the back room, and there's a window through the door, and he's like all like he's like climbing up this ladder and stuff, and it's meaningless. There's not even a joke in it, but it's just the detail they put into the background. A similar thing is a little bit later, before they leave Quailor 2, they're really arguing at this point, and you can see out the back of the shuttle, and there's like all this awesome stuff like going by the window.
Now I want to watch it again.
And the colors are all clever, so I just wanted to mention that. But then they go to
check that out again.
the bone stall.
Bonestel? Bonesaw. They go to Bonesaw.
No.
But so it costs 50 strips of latinum, and that got me looking up latinum, and it's not that complicated because I was curious the denominations.
Strips, slips, and blips.
Pips.
It's the order from least to most. Slip.
The bleeps, the sweeps, and the creeps.
The
what? The what? The what?
Sometimes you can
I don't know how
get
he does
snips. Sometimes you can get them snips of latinum.
Sometimes you get like shavings of latinum and put them in your cinnamon
Crispy snips.
Your cinnamon schnapps.
Yeah.
Your Schlager schnapps.
Latinum Schlager.
So I was saying, Latin schlag. Yeah. It goes from least to most. It goes slip, the strip, the bar, and the brick.
Ooh.
Oh, a brick of Latinum.
I wonder. Now it makes me want to look back in DS9 and see which episodes
They use those terms there. As
Well,
well.
what makes me want to know which episodes Quark was ever had an opportunity to get bricks of latinum, because it had to have happened, time or three.
There might have been. There was that one time where he got scammed, where it turned out that somebody had taken all the latinum out, and it was just useless gold bricks left over. But I don't know if those were bars or bricks, but I think those were bricks because they were big.
Big bricks, big useless gold bars,
Big old bricks.
big old bricks.
I think the guy. Now, what's your opinion on this?
I think it's great.
No. I haven't revealed I haven't revealed the this yet.
Wait for it, man. Wait for it.
When they go to Bonerland and they're trying to they're trying to get that, they're trying to raise the money to pay the repair guy. Do you think the repair guy is a Kelpian? He kind of seems like he's got like a Kelpian vibe to him. It just wasn't super clear from the way it was animated.
Now I want to watch again for that too, for the background animations and to pay the.
I think the repair guy might have been a Kelpian because we know Kelpians are handy with. They're not just tasty; they're also handy with tools. Because Saru is really good at that. Mm-hmm. We saw that in the short trek that was about him.
We know there's Nausicaans.
Yes, the Nausicaans are cool. They're being all typical Nausicaan style.
Yeah.
Playing the typical Nausicaan pool or whatever that... Damjat,
Damjat, because the guy was talking about that he just had the table rejotted.
Yeah.
And so...
I didn't catch that, but now I get it.
Yeah, and it's Damjat. And then I was looking up...
That was a Tellarite bar owner, I guess, right?
I use a Tellarite, totally.
Then there was like Dabo. Dabo is like the roulette one.
Yes. And you have the Dabo girl.
Yeah. So there's
misogynistic. It's a misogynistic game.
Seems like
right. So and then the Dabo. There's some kind of meaning behind the word. It's talking about like some kind. It says it means Dabo means, according to Memory Alpha, Dabo means I shall give in Latin. I almost said in Latinum. I shall give in Latin, and it means gold in Aramaic.
Well, there you go.
That's fucking
it's
wild.
a double entendre.
Those languages
pretty
aren't
clever.
really related. So.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a pun. It's like a pun, right?
You play Damjat, human. This is of course, a reference to Tapestry, where Picard and buddies get involved in some violence with
Picard's
some
a badass.
with some Nausicaans related to a nasty game of Damjat, and in which cheating is both alleged and committed.
And Picard's a badass and beats the shit out of the Nausicaan, and everyone's like, Picard, you're amazing. He's like, no, that was terrible of me. And it's kind of like
That was so terrible.
that was like when
I'm going to have a teal uniform.
when
now.
Hank Hill, when Bobby sees a video of Hank Hill in high school football, and he's like doing a flip in the end zone.
Oh, yeah.
Bobby's like, that was awesome. He's like, no, it was shameful.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, so the so he was like talking about how the Orions was going to use their pheromones to cheat them.
Yeah.
And then
confirming the much reviled pheromone conceit that was introduced in that Enterprise episode Bound, which we discussed that one. I think episode 61 of the podcast we discussed Bound.
So Mariner, goes like she wants her to juice it a bit, which is kind of gross, but that's just
gross.
imagery. Yeah. But that's not confirmed that it's there. But then later in the episode, Mariner's, when she's talking like a pirate, to try to sneak by, and he's like, what's your problem? She's like, I'm allergic to pheromones. He's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of pheromones around here right now. So that one right there confirms.
It is confirmed in the previous conversation, because when Mariner says that, can you juice it a bit? Tendi says, no, I'm not even that type of Orion.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's gross.
Yeah.
And first of all, this is yet another example of Mariner treating Tendi somewhat insensitively about her Orion heritage, right? So she hasn't fully learned her lesson from this first season episode. And again, the same one with the movie stuff where she really stereotypes Tendi. It's not quite as strong here, but it's the same sort of mechanisms at play.
Tendi's all like, everybody thinks we're thieves and pirates, and then she's like, I have a cousin. He lives in the thieves' den in the pirate outpost.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good joke.
Yeah.
But we see Tendi, another example of Tendi having conflict with her culture, including having to do the things she has to do, kicking ass and stuff. But with the pheromone thing, what I liked about this was, on the one hand, I was almost like a little annoyed that they confirmed the Enterprise thing, because you could have just said, all right, Enterprise, we'll just ignore that particular thing, just like we like to ignore TNG's Code of Honor. And there's always a few episodes you're just like, we're just going to pretend that whole thing didn't happen. Yeah. On the other hand, by confirming it and addressing it, but then adding to that information, I think they ended up doing a service to the Enterprise episode, because Tendi's statement saying, like, I'm not even that type of Orion.
Oh, right.
We don't have any details around that, but it does lay the groundwork for, okay, that's not true of everybody. It's not some universal skill. It's kind of like how the Trill, not all of them are joined. Only a small proportion of them are joined. But I also do like that they've continued this tradition that was started in Bound, in the Enterprise episode, which demonstrated that Orion women in their culture are the ones who are in charge. And Discovery already had implicitly continued this tradition because of events that happened with the Orions in Discovery. There's female leadership involved there. And in the short trek, The Escape Artist, which we discussed a few weeks back, it's a similar deal. We have a brief scene with Orions, and clearly the woman is in charge. So they've already continued this idea that that's how Orion's society is structured, or at least portions of it. And then they've also confirmed the at least a part of that whole pheromone deal.
Yeah, speaking of what you were saying about the of women being sort of, dominant. So there was that guy Donnie and he calls her cousin. But then, like, when it gets all tough on him, he starts kissing her feet and calling her mistress of winter constellations.
Yeah. Which is, by the way, Orion is sort of a winter constellation. It's highest in the sky in the Western Hemisphere.
So, do you think he was really her cousin?
Northern Hemisphere.
Do you think it was really her cousin? Because, like, it was a little weird,
I do think it was her cousin, and I think it was weird.
Kissing her feet and calling her a mistress, like, it's just kind of weird.
Different cultures.
Yeah, different cultures.
Different strokes for different cultures.
Different.
As the old saying goes.
She wasn't cool with it, though, so she agrees with you that was a little too much.
It's gross, the idea of the pheromones being really bad this time of year. Everything about I know it's probably not
like allergies.
It's like pollen.
Like, yeah, right. You don't have allergies.
Then when the Nausicaan said he thought she'd use her pheromones to cheat him, at first I thought he said fireballs. He says she'd use her fireballs to cheat him.
That'd be cool if she had fireballs.
At first I thought that.
How long did it take before you realized the error in thinking?
I think I rewinded it a couple of times and I kept hearing fireballs and I was like, that's not right. And by
fireballs, did you assume balls made out of flames, or the fireball candy that's like a spicy cinnamon candy?
Oh, no, you're silly.
Did you think she was going to lick some fireballs?
No, I thought she was talking
roll
about
them on the Domjot table.
I thought she was going to take a wizard fireball.
If the Nausicaans try to eat the fireballs and they're like, oh, these are too hot.
These are too hot.
And they'll get distracted and
too much cinnamon humor.
Kick them in the balls.
This burrito's good, but it's just too big.
I'm just going to throw it out the window.
Yeah.
But the whole business with the Orion pirate colony was a fun roaring adventure. All these little set pieces they have are cute because they're different environments. The music is slightly different for each one, right? The music in this episode is great, especially all the little Voyager stings they pop in here and there. Like
Boimler is singing them.
At one point, he's just humming
the Boimler.
That's the second time, because he was humming the TNG theme once, as I recall.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, in one of the early episodes.
Yeah, and that was the first time anybody had done like a reference to, like, an in-universe reference to the music.
Diegetic sound.
Yeah.
So everything. I thought it was. Whoa! What the fuck just happened over there? Something went flying.
I did something careless.
Is anything broken or messed up?
No, it's all good. It just made,
Okay. Do you need to deal with this now?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to continue with the podcast like it never happened.
Like it never even.
It was just the lid off of something.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Nothing happened at all.
But you were saying
nothing at all.
You were saying that.
I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, the Yosemite, the Yosemite,
Yosemite,
the shuttle. I thought it was hilarious when she rammed into the shields, and then she goes and just goes dink, and just kind of bounces off the shield like it was nothing.
Which someone on the internet pointed out was very similar to that fellow Roga Dinar, which was in that TNG episode, The Hunted. He's that guy who outsmarted Picard. But in the first season, again, I don't recall exactly which episode, but there's a point where they're talking about who the coolest person
they mentioned
and he was saying like Rogan Dinar, and Mariner's like, that's some guy nobody knows. You know, Khan is way cooler. He was a space.
Right, I remember that.
Boimler's talks about he outsmarted Picard and he has got great hair, but he does something similar where the Enterprise is trying to tractor beam him, and he just rams into the Enterprise's shields and sort of bounces off of them, and it helps him escape.
A bee got in the shuttle.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Put the bee in the brig. It's the bee's fault.
Yeah, she's always going back to the brig too.
And she has her specific cell that always has that little picture where she's drawn a fort and it says like Fort Mariner or something along those lines. It's a little castle she's drawn on the wall.
It's awesome. I like when Boimler was getting gassed up and he was he's all like, you know, at some point he turned into like some craziness face.
Yes.
And I didn't quite get that transition. I think it just kind of happened, but I like he like shoehorns in some like weird philosophy. He's like, I'm trapped because of a computer glitch, or perhaps it is I who is the glitch. It's just like,
well, because he is a transporter clone.
Some fumes.
Depending on how you want to.
And that's funny because it's like you can tell it's a throwaway line with a purpose. Like they're not going to really address it. They'll just throw it out there and let you kind of work with that. And it's well,
what did you think about this whole business with Tom Paris? Because we see Tom Paris, but he's not really in the episode that much. It's more of it's an end goal. Robert Duncan McNeil. As Tom Paris. He does a great job, of course, both as person and plate. Reprising his role as Tom Paris. I liked seeing him kick the shit out of Boimler.
Yeah.
He was like, Kazon.
I like it when Boimler, like, he pops down and he's like, Tom Paris.
I really respect you.
Yeah. So yeah, at the end when Boimler goes to Mariner, he goes, but this black guy he gave me is way cooler than a signed plate. And Mariner goes, true, there's like only a couple of people in the quadrant who can say they got beat up by Tom Paris. She like kind of joned on both of them. It's kind of awesome.
Who else did he beat up?
Yeah, he might have beaten up Harry Kim.
Why would he beat up Harry Kim?
Like,
they get an argument over something.
Not Harry Kim's an asshole. Tom Paris is an asshole.
So do you think all ships in Starfleet have collectible plates?
I hope so.
Well,
at least
so
the good ones.
And do they really call it voy in real life? Do people really call it voy?
there was a debate about this on the internet. Some people were saying, like, I don't call it voy. And then people were like, well, I do.
It does save time.
Well, I had a friend in middle school. He didn't like being called a Trekkie. He said that was insulting. He insisted on being called a Trekker.
That was a thing in the 90s.
Yeah.
We were all there. That was early Usenet and disconnected independent BBSs. The culture led us in some strange directions.
Yeah.
As we are now living with the results of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Now people like to be called Trekors.
Trekors.
Yeah,
like sensors.
Oh, sensors. I get it. That's pretty funny.
I'm a Trekor.
So you're talking about Starfleet collectible plates.
Starfleet collectible plates.
Flintstones, chewable morphine.
The Enterprise D probably has
the thing. Yeah,
plates.
And the thing to consider is the timeline. If this is 2381, which we believe it is, there's a great deal of evidence to suggest that it is.
There's a great deal of suggestion.
When does Voyager make it back?
Voyager returns in 2378. So this is a mere 3 years later. So it makes sense for Tom Paris to be giving tours a la the fellow at the end of The Martian, who's like teaching classes about how not to freak out when your fucking world abandons you on another planet.
Oh yeah, and you have to eat your own poop.
Even though he's like some kind of guy with a criminal record.
Well,
he's wanted.
And he can give a speech about how, like, I went to jail, but look at me. All I had to do was do some miraculous shit. And now I'm no longer in jail. But he's a lieutenant now, I think. But it's not like he's a captain yet, which makes sense.
He's been a lieutenant for a long time.
Well, was he the first that broke the transwarp barrier when he turned into...
Yes, that's the Salamander.
What happened to Chakotay? Did they throw Chakotay in the brig when he got back to Earth? Like,
you mean just for good measure because he's a Maquis?
Yeah.
Balana
too.
So
that'd be fucked
they're just
up.
like, no, you guys
it'd be fucked up if they're like, oh, Tom Paris, the white guy.
Yeah.
So was it?
He can
welcome
go free.
back, guys. You coming to jail?
The rest of you people, no.
So was it Boimler when they were talking about Paris turning into Salamander? That was Boimler said.
Yeah.
Paris basically turned funky because of celerity-induced accelerated accelerated somatic mutation rate.
Yeah, because he broke the transwarp barrier and he turned into a salamander.
Yeah, right. And it's just funny. I
And
never,
then he had
I never,
sex with Captain Janeway and made salamander baby.
yeah, I just never heard it worded like that. It was interesting. It was fun.
It was pretty hot.
It was fun.
It was a pretty hot way to word the technobabble.
Technobabble, technobabble.
Technobabble.
And Mariner says, "Oh, did you get your plate signed by Chakotay or something?"
Oh yeah, you guys do Chakotay, nose, pears.
Yeah.
Mek'leth. She ran over Worf's Mek'leth. I looked up Mek'leth. It's one of their weird daggers.
Yeah, it's the smaller one.
It's the weird short sword dagger kind of thing.
Hold on.
I read he used it more in Deep Space Nine. You saw that more than the Batleth.
What's the one called that splits into? Isn't there one that you press a button and it splits up?
That's a Star Trek thing.
Yeah, I just wonder what that's called. Klingon knives that split up.
Googling with Dan.
Googling with Dan.
Google on the podcast.
Not a batleth.
No, it's not a batleth.
No, that's another thing. It's badass.
Yeah, Klingon blade weapon. Well, that's just an auction. Never mind. Okay, well, it's not important. It doesn't matter what it's called.
Important. All right, so
Nothing matters anymore.
The thing about Tom Paris is that they didn't do a Nick Locarno joke, and Nick Locarno, for those not in the know, was Robert Duncan McNeil's first role on Star Trek. It was on TNG in the first duty, where he is on a team with Wesley, and they do some aerial acrobatics that end up with one of their friends being killed.
And that girl that's in the actual episode that's called Lower Decks.
Ensign Cito, I forget her first or her family name. I forget. But Nick Locarno, at the end of that episode, he ends up getting in trouble, right? And my understanding, as the tale goes, though it could be apocryphal or otherwise incorrect, is that when they were putting together Voyager, they wanted to have the Nick Locarno character be brought back into the fold, and he would be the character that became Tom Paris. And they really liked Robert Duncan McNeil. They wanted to bring him back. However, somewhere along the line, somebody realized, supposedly, again, as the story goes, that if they used the name Nick Locarno in the character, then they would have to pay continued royalties to the writer of that original episode. And so they opted to change the name and the character slightly, but
Nobody wants to do that.
It's still Robert Duncan McNeil playing a fellow who's in jail, who has lots of honor and skills, but was put in jail for not necessarily a great reason, but like he's not like some evil piece of shit or something, right?
But basically.
So the point being, they didn't do a Nick Locarno joke. A lot of people were expecting they would do a Nick Locarno joke because it's an obvious joke that Nick Locarno looks exactly like Tom Paris.
Right, but do you think
even has a similar background.
You think they can't even reference it in Lower Decks?
I was thinking that maybe the same reason they had to change his name to Tom Paris is what either prevented or made it more problematic to even mention the character in this episode, because maybe they'd have to pay that person royalties. I don't know enough about the industry to A, know if this story is remotely true, but it's all over the internet.
It's all over it.
B, whether or not that means the studio's being assholes, or I don't know who's the asshole in this situation, if someone's being an asshole. So you can write us in at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com.
Maybe the characters maybe just never heard of this Nick Locarno.
Or on Twitter at It's Got Star Trek. Tell us who the asshole is. Who's the asshole?
We could look in the library and see if they have any good books on it, or maybe the microfiche has something related.
Is there a punchline coming?
No, I was just making a suggestion.
You just wanted to say
the library. You just wanted to say microfiche.
And library. I like the idea of going to the library to look up like Star Trek, fan.
What other types
data.
of fiches are there? Is there like
macrofiche?
Is macrofiche?
Yeah, shit will fucking blow your mind.
Like, I want to pull out.
It's like going to the movie theater.
I want to pull out. I want to pull out one of those big old.
It's a big old article.
I want to pull out one of those big old dusty books in the back of the library and open it up, and it talks all about like all the Star Trek lore and everything.
Just open
like
it
that.
up to the Star Trek section.
I know. Wouldn't it be cool?
It was just, and it's like ancient history. Do you want to hear some Klingon blades? Names?
Sure, why not? Why not?
Odds and ends.
There's the Batleth.
Yeah.
There's the Duktog. There's the Gintok spear.
Of course, yes.
There's the Kligot. The Kutluk.
Okay.
The Mek'leth, which we were just talking about.
Just discussing that.
Mevak.
All right.
Kawat Malak.
And the Tajluk. The last one is the Tajluk.
I don't believe that one. That one I don't believe is real.
Well, it's real.
I think you made that one up.
No, I didn't. I'll describe
Is
to
that
you.
Memory Alpha or Memory?
This Memory Alpha,
Bobo.
baby. Now, Memory Bobo.
I'm Sorry.
I don't. The thing is, I didn't see any of the knives that split into 3. So did I just make that up?
No, you didn't make that up. That existed, but and I'm pretty sure that's Star Trek and not something else. Like not other some sort of sci-fi.
Maybe they didn't give him a name.
I'm trying to find a
Star
picture
Trek
of the
movie or
trying to find a picture of the Tajlk, but I can't find a picture of the.
Maybe that's what
Tajlk.
maybe that's what the Tajlk is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the 3. That means 3-part dagger in Klingon.
3-part dagger.
Non-canon sources are calling it a Tajlk. It was never named on screen. In both cases, the script of the episodes feature Worf fighting with his mek'leth. It is unknown why mek'leths weren't used as such as... whatever. This is just a bunch of stuff that we don't care. It's a knife with a particularly long blade that is used almost as though it were a sword. Okrund explains that the word Tajlk is that.
That's it's more like a sword. Okay.
So it's like a...
It's not the 3-part dagger.
Maybe it's that sword thing we were talking about. No, that was the mek'leth. Okay, that's enough of that. Are we fully entertained by
We're
that
gonna
segment?
have to do a whole other episode about Klingon weapons.
Did we reach the max entertainment level of that section? Did we squeeze it a little too dry?
We've gotten everything we can get.
Yeah.
All right. So I did really enjoy this episode, but I did have 2 little critiques that caught me a little bit off guard.
How dare you?
No, it's okay.
I'm just kidding.
It's okay because they didn't ruin the episode to me. Like this is a top episode for me. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well put together. However, one thing I thought didn't land as well as the jokes usually land here was the whole thing with Shax not wanting to talk about sort of the traumatic experience with Rutherford. The joke was funny in construction, but the punchline didn't make that much sense to me because while we have seen a lot of the whole Star Trek characters coming back from death, we haven't seen it in the context of like some horrible thing that they don't want to talk about necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I was what I was thinking. It was. I mean, it's from the perspective of the lower decks, obviously, and it sort of makes you sort of wonder, like, us as the audience, we take for granted when stuff like happens in the show, but there's a crew of 1,000 people back there we never think about, and do they make an announcement over the loudspeaker? What happened? Like, how would they announce that this person's back to life, you know? Or do they just kind of let it slide?
And that's hilarious.
You just see him at the replicator line.
The thing that makes it
With
not
kiwi ketchup.
not land as
Kiwi
well
ketchup,
for me is the fact that they introduce what's effectively a new concept of the officers don't want to talk about it or they're uncomfortable. And that brings up the second critique I have, which is, again, as funny as it is in terms of a joke in the context of the episode, and frankly, I'm okay with that because in drama, you should focus more on what's going to work as opposed to what fits the canon of the universe. Except the result is that Cody guy who asks the question, is Cody, right? Who asked the question and then effectively gets fired off of the Cerritos.
Right.
And maybe his career is ruined. That's not a very Star Trek reaction to it, right? It's not a Starfleet reaction. And the shock of that, the joke relies on the fact that we know it's not a Starfleet thing to do when somebody asks what's a perfectly innocent and reasonable question and then is fired and banished because of that. Yes, it's funny because you're like, whoa, it's so bad that even Starfleet people are going to be like,
you think it
real
was
shitty.
just a little too out of character, though?
It's because it didn't really connect well because what the show has done previously, to its credit, is sometimes it'll make you think they're going to do something assholey, but then it turns out it's like, no, like with Rutherford getting to try different jobs and everyone's totally supportive of him, including Shax, when he thinks he's going to disappoint Shax because he decides that he does not want to be in security.
Yeah, even like he's doing the bridge training, and he keeps like totally screwing it up.
Yeah,
and then
killing all the
Ransom's just
children.
like, let's just keep trying it.
Yeah, let's just keep doing it. So normally that's what they do, and so that threw me a little bit off. And it's like, again, if you want to have a good dramatic beat or a comedic beat, depending on the style of the show, you should go for that as opposed to consistency. I do tend to agree, certainly in the Star Trek context, because you're never going to be able to be 100% consistent. So if you can tell a better story or have a better characterization by fudging a little bit the lines. There's a perfect example in this episode. Mariner not knowing Tendi's first name, Devana. We know she did know the name in a previous episode, but they didn't let that prevent. I'm sure they knew that too. And it's not a mistake. They were just like, you know what? We want to make this point here, and we can make the point most clearly with Mariner not knowing Tendi's name. So we'll retcon it so she doesn't remember Tendi's name. That's an acceptable and that's a good way to do it. in the case with the whole Black Mountain and all that other stuff and the terror and the trauma, along with the ruining the career of a very polite, nice young ensign by all accounts, I don't know that joke was worth the price, if you know what I mean.
I did like the part though when he was talking about the Black Mountain.
Me
and
too.
Stuff like
it's
that.
funny. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, but they're framing it as this is the reason why they never talk about it to the lower to anybody, you know. So
yeah. I guess it is also kind of like a little bit out there because that's never sort of been. You're right. That's never been an issue.
And
sort of like
it's a tiny little nitpick. It's not even it doesn't even rise fully to the level of a complaint. But it was something I noticed that was sort of scratched against me a little bit.
Well, speaking of scratching, I still am not buying why Dr. Kitty was like in the box, but it still had scratch marks on the post. Why would her ancestors be into the?
Well, maybe she's not so much into the. She was like, I don't care about that old scratching post.
No, I know, but why would if she wasn't into the scratching post? Why wouldn't her ancestors be into the scratching post?
Well, they were into it.
It's a fair point.
So why would they be into it and she wasn't? You know what I mean?
I think this is.
I think the joke is should more be that all cats want to play in the box, and so they would be like, "Why aren't there any scratches? It's because we don't use this."
I see what you're saying.
And I think here again we have another example of.
It was still a really funny joke, though.
Of they know it doesn't make sense in the end because. Why she could have had another box? Is there something special about that particular box?
What was in the box?
Why is she?
Why don't they have just
what's in the box?
They got all those funky boxes in the cargo bay, probably. Like
so, the joke is not 100% structurally sound. It's built on a problematic foundation, but seeing a cat in a coat get into a box is still that's to me that's just like it's worth it. If that's what they had to do, if that was their resolution, sure, maybe there would have been other options that maybe would work a little bit better. Because I was also trying to think with the Shax thing, what would the other option be? Well, maybe you could just have it that Shax. It turns out it is one of those simple, it's like, oh yeah, it was a transporter loop thing or whatever. Make it more simple, but then I'm not exactly sure where they're going with this Rutherford thing. Now that Rutherford has this information, I don't know. Is this a one-time thing where it's just like, or is it going to impact him somewhere down the line? We'll find out soon enough.
I mean, when he got his cybernetics replaced, and that really only affected him for one episode so far.
Yeah, it still has. He still talks about memory loss, and he doesn't have a full memory of everything, but he clearly has a memory of some things.
I like the Cation, just the idea of they're this cute cat, but they're also this respected, member of the crew, this doctor. So when they act like a cat, it's kind of cute and funny, but at the same time, the crew's a little weirded out by it because it's like, it's like combining two things in a weird way that makes you uncomfortable, and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it was the same way the crew on the Next Generation on the Enterprise D would in sickbay would be weirded out when Dr. Crusher just like let her son come in and use all the medical equipment.
Oh yeah,
to run his experiments that often put the ship in danger.
Yeah.
The only other
grew some weird
cation
shit, didn't he?
that you see is on TAS.
Remember when
there's some in the movies in the background?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Even in Star Trek 4, I think you see.
Remember when Wesley first came in? He ran onto the bridge and sat in the captain's chair, and Picard was like beside himself.
Well, he was beside himself in Times Square.
Yes, he was, because he was near time travel.
and time clone.
He met himself. That's a paradox. If you time cop and you touch each other,
that's Back to the Future.
When time cop
in Time Cop too.
In Time Cop, no, it's different in Time Cop. Whereas Back to the Future, if you just see them, it could cause a paradox.
It could.
In Time Cop, you have to touch the other person. They say if their atoms occupy the same space, it makes the things explode. First of all, is that really the atoms occupying the same space when
Probably
you touch
not.
someone? No. So anyway,
so
the only other
you can listen to we discussed that in more detail when we discussed Times Square a few weeks back.
Yes. So
scroll,
that was just
scroll down.
That was just a little reminder teaser.
All right.
Yeah, Jesse was mentioning the spicy kiwi ketchup. That was is that some kind of play on something?
That was funny.
Is that like there's just banana ketchup?
I don't know, but like somebody made a comment that was weird, and maybe it's like he's into that since he's come back from the dead. He's into weird ketchup.
Oh yeah, maybe there's gonna be a thing where he's all like a little off now.
Because like I think maybe like
Mariner wasn't cool with it.
She was like, yeah, why would you mess with ketchup?
Have you ever had banana ketchup?
No, I don't eat any kind of ketchup.
Oh yeah, you don't. That's right, you don't have ketchup. Banana ketchup's pretty interesting.
I mean, it sounds interesting, but I bet it's still ketchup.
The food choices they make are always interesting because so Star Trek, I've said before, always has I always like their dinners and their meals they have. They're always so funny. But
Street corn,
but
poutine.
Well, okay, but in
nachos.
So in the Star Trek,
Bonsai.
hold on. Star Trek, but Star Trek really never talks about what they eat from the replicators. They kind of get it, but they don't talk about it. What they really show off is these banquet tables of awesome food. Yeah. Here they talk about the replicator food and like all that stuff you listed, and then there's like tacos, and he ordered some pupusas. Like I don't know.
It's usually funky drinks.
Pupusas are delicious. It's just kind of like funny that they're putting throwing all these different food items. They're just naming different foods, and it's kind of awesome. They never talk about that. They don't really talk about that in the other Star Treks, except when Troy gets some chocolate sundae.
Yeah, periodically. Banana split or something.
Or the
Hosperat.
The something sunrise.
Hosperat.
What is that?
We had this discussion. We were trying to.
We have had this discussion.
It turned out it was either a stew or like a baklava.
That's what it's.
I think it's like a stew, but it could also be like a baklava. It sounds more like a baklava.
It's a Bajoran dish,
like a Bajoran baklava, but it could be a Bajoran stew. It's probably a stew.
Maybe it's like a baklava that's stuffed
stewy,
with stew,
or like a stewy baklava.
Yeah,
just like swimming in some Bajoran honey.
Like a pasty, but
it's a stew
Bajoran pasty.
Yeah.
So when Mariner was talking about Ensign Escher.
Yeah,
and she was.
I thought there was going to be an Escher joke.
Yeah, no, it's a different joke.
But I couldn't determine an Escher joke.
I didn't.
Conversation.
How do you do an Escher joke?
MC Escher.
How do you do a vocal joke with people talking about Escher? You'd have to do a visual joke. Mm-hmm.
She was saying, says like, oh, she just got lucky and was in the right place with the right hypo spray. And we were just talking about this with Star Trek 4, how doctors don't actually do shit in the future.
They're just hypo sprays.
They have their hypo sprays and their medical tricorders and their
medical
little
venom.
And their little head doohickeys that they stick on that go beep, 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 beep.
Sometimes they have that operating like thing that they put over their belly.
Oh yeah, that shit always does a trick.
You don't see much. You do see the operation when they're doing some trill.
Wait, are you talking about when they're on the bed and there's the thing over their crotch
and then
part?
And then there's like you imagine, because it's old technology from the 1980s. You think it's like doing some auto surgery on them.
Yeah. So the doctors. It's true. They don't do shit.
I like that Shaq still referred to Rutherford as Baby Bear.
Oh yeah.
It was cute.
Yeah, that was cute. Why couldn't we never found out why Boimler couldn't go through the doors, did we?
Because of security.
The implication was that he wasn't correctly added by Billups to the security system.
And that is
because at the end,
bureaucratic issue.
Yeah, because at the end, because some people on the internet were saying like, is it related to Boimler's transporter clone issue or something along those lines? But it did get resolved at the end, except for he was all messed up in the head from getting the shit kicked out of him, and smelling all that like Jeffrey's tube gas.
Yeah,
and so they had that. What for me was another laugh out loud joke, which is I was embarrassed that I laughed out loud, but I did when he's all like, "Oh no, not again!" He was trying to walk through the door, and Tendy's like, "No, that's just a wall with a seam in it."
Yeah, it was just so out of nowhere.
And that guy Jet was like, I can carry you like through the door or something.
So I don't think they were making this joke, but you can totally buy that he was added in, because he was saying they added me in the system,
Yes.
And so you could totally just say it wasn't anything crazy. It's just this is a system admin thing where it's like somebody's in the system, but they don't have the right rights or the right roles or whatever.
Somebody didn't follow through all the way.
Someone didn't put all their permissions in correctly or something.
Yeah, they might have added him to the system without actually tagging him with whatever the appropriate. He's allowed to be on the ship doing stuff.
It ain't the Enterprise.
He can't elevate himself to admin level.
Yeah, it's not the Enterprise.
It's not the Enterprise.
The people on the Enterprise got that shit down. They don't fuck around with that shit.
Yeah,
the important people go on the Enterprise.
They should have done an episode of TNG where Data makes a data entry error, and no pun intended. And as a result, it results in some comically simple little problem like this with maybe one particular crew member. But Data becomes so obsessed with it that he pulls like a Clues style thing where he like hacks into the computer and like erases logs and erases everyone's memory with some sort of like fluorescein gas because he doesn't want his error to be caught.
I think when people say no pun intended, they secretly intend.
No, in that case, it was not intended.
Now I'm thinking of a perverted joke
I was just being silly.
Perverted joke about Data and
with his being fully functional.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, there's been a data entry failure or something."
Yeah. It's a good one
because he's impotent for some reason. I don't know.
But he's fully functional.
Yeah, he's totally functional whenever he wants. wants to.
Well, you
Dan
know.
knows.
But the thing about
When
computers,
you're making a point about being like, oh, I'm fully functional, maybe you're not.
oh, you think he's insecure?
Maybe he's compensating.
Maybe
for something.
sometimes.
The thing is you have to want to make those decisions, and do computers really want to do
Sometimes
anything?
data's all tapped out.
Bad binars. Bad binars.
What motivates a computer? What motivates a computer to make a decision? You know, like why would they up and do something?
What motivates a person?
He just
Same
wants to
question
feel.
applies.
Man. Just wants to feel.
It's not quite the same.
It is
wants to feel your
philosophically. You can ask the exact same question about humans. We perceive that we have more answers about it, but that's only because we're human.
Of course, philosophically you can say that, but philosophically you can say whatever the fuck you want.
And that's what I'm doing. You're asking what motivates a computer. I'm asking what motivates a human.
Yeah, and
now it's a different question whether those motivations are similar.
Right, and I don't really think that I want to get into that big discussion.
We're not getting into that. That's not this kind of podcast.
No, exactly. So that's why
That's not entertaining.
So that's why I'm not answering that because not because I can't do it. It's just because I don't want to.
You're fully functional.
Oh.
No, but bad binars, computers.
Bad binars. Yeah, she was talking about some bad binars.
She was listening to all the kind of folks she's into, which was first, she's into non-binary, bad binars.
Bad binars.
So as has been demonstrated before, Mariner has a broad array of interests.
Do you date two binars at once?
See, that's a question,
right?
Or
That is a question.
are they dating each other?
Yeah.
And do you got to horn in on that?
You're just like the.
Do you got to
third.
put on one of those little brain implant things in order to beep boop?
Beep boop them. You gotta beep boop with them.
I don't know.
Because it's all ones and zeros with those people.
We got to learn more.
It's all ones and zeros with you people. How dare you?
Some good old fashioned binar prejudice.
I'm quantum.
It's like I like twos as well, mother.
What's wrong
You
with
get out of
threes
this
and
house.
fours?
You get the fuck out of this house. No binar son of mine is going to be into twos or threes or none of that bullshit. None of that Federation bullshit.
Oh man.
You go to the Federation with that 4 and 5.
You could do a lot with some like bad binar. Like that's how you get a bad binar.
Yeah.
Toss them out of the house because they're into like 0.5 every now and then.
Oh man.
Or they put on some fucking LPs because they're all like, it sounds better in analog. And the father takes off his belt and just starts beating the fuck out of him. Just beating the fuck out of him. You take that back. Digital.
This is a digital house.
I don't want you hanging out down at Quarks anymore. You're hanging out with the wrong crowd with that fucking Vic Fontaine piece of shit singing at you in all analog. All right.
But he's ultimately digital, so
Yeah.
he passes. But he's an imitator. He's an analog poser.
That's some fucking poetry you just laid down. All right. Odds and ends. Additional odds and ends.
So
Evens and beginnings.
there was like Tendi was talking to
Tendi always makes me think of chicken tenders.
yeah, I know, me too.
Not in a sexual way.
No, but it's just because
I'm a hungry.
people start calling them tendies. At
Yeah,
some point.
I've never called them
I've never
tendies,
done that
but
either.
when
I
somebody
don't
else
speak
is like,
like
"Oh,
that.
I want some chicken tendies," I'm like, "Yeah, I'm right there with you."
I don't speak
So
that.
they were talking about getting her cat's thing, and she was like all cleaning something, and she's like, why is there bile on the arches why is there bile on, like, she's scrubbing some bile, right?
Where's that?
It's she's like,
I don't recall it.
I've really explained this really fucking.
Is it earlier in the
excellently.
episode?
Okay, yeah, it's early. It says, yeah. So Dr. Cat says, Ensign, get in here, and then Tendi goes, I scrubbed half the arches, and I won't stop until all the bile is. And she's like, shut up, listen.
All right, so she was doing something else.
So she was cleaning something. She was cleaning bile off the arches.
But it could have been a
sick bay.
Arches. It could have been a construction arch in terms of like a part of the ship, or it could have been the arches in an organ or a mouth. Mouth arches.
Okay, I'm not arguing what the arch is. It can be whatever. But why was there bile all over something?
Why?
It's a medical
What
facility.
motivates bile?
I think Jesse probably answered the question
Yeah,
appropriately.
I mean, she's a doctor.
It's just you don't usually talk about scrubbing bile off things.
That's true.
You're hanging out with the wrong doctor.
There's not a lot of fluids flying around in the
Yeah.
24th century.
Yeah, and in general, like there's not bile on the hospital walls too often.
Yeah, even when the panels explode and people die, there's not a lot of blood either.
Maybe they got one of
Yeah.
them.
They got some burns and stuff.
Maybe they got one of them Linus lizard saurian crew members, and maybe they squirt bile out their eyeballs or something periodically.
Oh yeah,
You never know.
that
what's
guy
going
that's
You never
always
know.
the guy in Discovery's
Well-
always sneezing on people.
Oh yeah, that guy.
I like
well, they did. Well, they didn't. They should have thrown a character like. Well, no, they shouldn't have. It was. I think it was just meant to be ambiguous and fun.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you know, it was like whatever.
on. Absolutely.
I
I
like ambiguous and fun.
Yeah.
Me too. Mm-hmm. Me too. Boimler mentions Fairhaven and
Yeah,
Captain Proton,
Captain Proton.
talking about Tom Paris's various holographic adventures.
I believe we did a show on that.
Yeah, we did Fairhaven and Spirit Folk in episode 79. That was just Jesse and I because
we went
Dan,
to we went
Dan
to
was
Ireland.
on duty.
I was on duty.
Jesse and I went to
so
took a-
smelly because I was on duty.
Jesse and I took a trip to Ireland and drank a lot of Irish whiskey and did a podcast from an Irish pub.
Your namesake.
Yes, yeah, sort of. My
We
last
found
name.
we found a
had-
nice
similar to
place to do a podcast from there.
Were you like on
British
some,
Isles.
Were you on
The
some green
Irish
green
Isles.
place? Were you,
Yeah, green was everywhere.
It was green. Did you see Luke Skywalker?
No, we didn't
No.
go to the weird rocky islands.
Okay. So when Freeman is all riffing with Paris, she goes like, "Just don't send us to the Delta Quadrant." Like she was so proud of that joke, and everyone's like, "Ho ho ho!" And you know, Paris hears that shit all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. I was thinking that too. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't have like a reaction shot of him being like, ugh, not that again.
Yeah, really.
When the shuttle is landing on Quailor 2, very briefly, this got called out by a couple people on the internet. It's hard to see. You had to kind of go frame by frame, but there is in the background, it looks like the Winnebago from Spaceballs, that Lone Star and Mog drive, because it's got the wings kind of like high up on it. It's not exactly like it, so I don't know if it's meant to be a reference or joke, but it's just always fun to think about Spaceballs. Any reason you have to think about Spaceballs, that's a good reason.
Yeah, I was watching a video. There's this channel where this guy like makes all these 3D models of different sized things.
Oh yeah, that's tight.
Yeah. And one of them was like sci-fi ships.
Yeah.
And they included Spaceball
That's a
1.
good one,
As
yeah.
Spaceball 1 was like a mile long or something.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
All right.
I was when Shax was talking all the death thing stuff was happening, he was talking about scientific depravity.
Yes.
Like I was like, what could that possibly mean?
And again, that was it was funny, but it didn't quite match up with what we know. And,
You're right,
and he
yeah.
didn't even. We don't know exactly what happened to him.
And he didn't talk about anything scientific. He talked about like some mythological shit.
I think what's difficult is it's always difficult when you try to pull the joke of we're not going to reveal this information to the audience because there's no way what we have could really match what's in their imagination, right? And I respect that. That's fine. It's just it so often doesn't quite work as well as they want it to. And I think here's an example of that. Is like I'm trying to imagine things that would make Rutherford go into the fetal position and sweat.
But on the other hand, I guess the whole point was just to say some ridiculous, conflicting, weird shit.
Of course, that's the point. That's
It's
the
like,
joke.
because part of the joke of Star Trek is like, you have creatures like Q who are these omnipotent beings, and you're basically taking the idea of God and making it sort of making it seem realistic. you know?
and all of that's fine. It just to me, it was like there's something like a little disconnect there between what we've actually seen. But who cares?
Who cares?
Who cares?
Who
It's
gives a
just a
shit?
television
It's a
program.
TV
It's just
cartoon
it's
show.
all in the caves.
It's not gonna ruin your day.
Just leave it in the caves of Nomad.
Yeah, that Klingon cave where all sorts of dishonorable or honorable shit. I can't
They
remember.
like to sing about caves.
They're always thinking about them caves, putting their blood wine in crates in caves.
That squid thing in
Gawk,
the
baby,
opening
gawk.
that hangs onto the nacelles is in the opening scene. There's a big squid monster.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Reapers from the game Mass Effect. I've mentioned Mass Effect many times.
Yes, you have.
It's probably a commonly shaped creature. It's probably some kind of what's we were just talking about him. Color out of
Gormagander.
Cthulhu dude. What's
Cthulhu.
Oh, right, like a Cthulhu dude.
What's that dude's name?
Cthulhu.
No,
Lovecraft.
Lovecraft. It's like a Lovecraft thing. I guess.
H.P. Lovecraft.
Cthulhu dude.
Yeah. See, I told you my memory.
Who's that Cthulhu dude?
Cthulhu dude.
You're gonna Cthulhu you
That's
too.
a cool. I think we should just call him Cthulhu dude. from now on. That's
Cthulhu
pretty
you.
good.
Cthulhu 2.
More odds and ends.
Cthulhu 2.
I don't think so. I think that's it.
You got any more odds and ends?
Cthulhu 2.
Dan, any more odds and ends? I think I'm
Cthulhu 2?
Cthulhu 2.
fresh out of odds and
Cthulhu
ends.
2.
Billups is not Stevens. Stevens is not Billups. But
Yes.
Stevens has
They're
a
easy to
mustache.
confuse, but they're
They
different.
both have mustaches, but one's bald.
And one is Paul Scheer. That's Billups. And he did a couple of the other voices, I think, in this episode. And then Stevens is a person that I don't recall. So that's good. There's a good amount of odds and ends for this episode. A fun episode. Entertaining. We get to learn more about Mariner and Tendi. That was cool. Rutherford. I enjoy this whole Rutherford kind of often having near nervous breakdowns.
Yeah.
Before
I have to
in
know.
this episode is not resolved. Usually it's resolved by the end, but in this one, not 100% resolved because he's sort of sweating and in the fetal position at the end of the episode. But we'll see if that goes anywhere
So
further.
he's sweating in the fetal position.
And of course, Boimler getting to meet one of his heroes, Tom Paris. Hopefully, he got his plate signed.
He was all strutting around at one point with that plate. He was all strutting. He was like, I got my plate. And then he ran into the door.
Exactly. That was great. So next week, we will talk about the next episode.
Episode
Wait for the next.
Lower Decks.
What's that song that goes in the next episode? That's
so
Dr.
just
Dre.
chill.
Isn't that Dre?
Yeah.
So that's what we'll be doing.
It was
It's
2000 something.
We don't know the name of the
It's
episode
let it ride. Let me ride.
because they don't release the names of the episode in enough time for us to tell you. Because we get right to recording these podcasts. We watch these episodes. We get right to recording the podcasts so we can get the entertaining content out to you ASAP.
Chronic 2000.
But you will know the name of the episode between now and next week, and you can bet your bottom dollar that we will know the name of the episode by the time we're recording.
And we will mention it on the podcast.
But it is episode 4, so that's what we'll be talking about. In the meantime, if you'd like to get into contact with us...
In the meantime.
It's so hard not to do that. If you do want to get in contact with us, of course, the traditional old school email is available. It's feedback@itsgotstartrek.com.
Don't send us letters, though, because that's creepy.
People do. Yeah, well, you can send us letters.
Why
You can
not?
find
Why
our,
can't they
Yeah,
send us
I'm
a
just-
Well, it's because
I'm
we
just
haven't
being
given,
silly.
it's creepy because we haven't given out our mailing address. So
Yeah,
if they
that's
find it,
why.
that's creepy. But email's fine. However, you're going to have more luck and more fun
Morlock.
if you follow
Warlock.
and interact with us on Twitter at It's Got Star Trek on Twitter. We're also on Instagram. We're on Facebook. An increasing number of you are digging
Apple Podcast.
the YouTube channel.
Gotta
we
say
don't-
Apple Podcast.
That
really do-
YouTube
we
is
don't
pretty
re-
cool
we-
too,
we,
man.
We don't really do any. I mean, if you want to see a video of three dudes hanging around talking, that's our YouTube's not it. Our YouTube specializes in just having the podcast and highlights from the podcast with the static image. Now it's a real nice static image.
It's a good one.
It's like you're listening to
seen it.
music.
It's an
but you're- a
award-winning
podcast.
static image. But if you want to listen to podcasts or your TV or something, YouTube is one great way to do it.
Spotify.
But yes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iTunes,
I'll Spotify
Overcast, Stitcher, all the business. You can find us there. Tell your friends.
Skitcha.
Your friends. It's one of those
Twitcher.
things that people don't think about because you don't want to be rude. You don't want to be horning in on your friend's personal business by recommending podcasts to them, right?
That was the second time you said horning in.
Yes. So you don't want to horn in on that's the third time, friend's business by recommending podcasts to them. But what you don't realize is that your friend is out there, probably many of your friends, and they're like, oh man, I run through all my podcasts. I don't know what to listen to while mowing the lawn.
What am I gonna do
I've got to
about
drive
it?
to the store and buy stuff.
I don't have headphones. I'm trying to listen through my phone speaker while I'm mowing the
What
lawn,
could
and
I
it doesn't
listen
work.
to in the car? I
And
don't like
you
music.
could help them out by recommending our podcast. You could also recommend other podcasts. We don't recommend that you recommend other podcasts, but you are free to do so. But you can recommend our podcast and fill some time in their day, help them distract them from their.
I'm Rico.
their
I'm
daily
Phil.
chores. Is that a joke?
Nope.
All right.
I was just making a
Doesn't sound like what it is.
I was just making a connection.
This is the type
A
of
connection between Rico and Phil.
don't you start with your connections.
Because you said Phil, then I said Phil, and you said recon something, and I said Rico. You said reckon reconcile or something? You said some kind of R word.
All right, so this is the type of content that you could just play this part for your friend and say like, "Hey, you want to listen to more of this?
Want to hear some really smart stuff?
Would you like to hear this?
You want to listen to some more of this poor bullshit?"
There was that person, the person that said we had really good
quick.
chemistry
Yeah,
because we've known each other a long time, so it sounds like
carefully script each of these episodes and rehearse all week long.
The trick to rehearsing is you have to make it sound like it's not rehearsed. So that's how you got to rehearse even more.
That's the trick.
In this episode, I practiced talking over everybody because that's what I did this whole episode was just talk over everybody.
I don't think so.
It was pretty obnoxious of me. So
I don't think you talked.
It's the coffee.
No, I don't think you talked over.
Well, I didn't do it like the whole time, but I did it a couple times.
I mean, I think
feel bad
I think
about
we
it, so.
all at some point talk over someone else.
I know it's hard to get a word.
But it's
in,
good
man.
it's good to speak up.
The main thing is that I never talk over anybody else.
Oh, Patrick, you silly boy!
But-
you made a joke.
We have to say goodbye. So
We do.
That was mental comedy.
There's no more
fucking
podcasts.
Mental is the right word
It
for
was
it.
silly humor.
Silly humor. I call it silly humor. So, episode 4, next week, more of this engaging content coming your way for free, funded by Big Star Trek, so you don't have to pay a dime or hear an ad.
It'll have more Star Trek next time.
More Star
There
Trek.
will be more Star Trek.
Extra Star Trek, because episode 4
50%
is gonna
more.
be shoved right deeply in there. So we
I'm gonna shove
look
it right up your ass.
forward to talking to you next
It'll
week.
be a star pilgrimage.
In the meantime, have a good one, and we will talk to you in the future. Goodbye.
Damage report?
None.
That was weird.